It's the Dice Tower's coverage of GenCon 2012, powered by Game Salute News.
Hey, this is Tom Vassell, and welcome to video 3 in our series on GenCon. And in this one, I'm going to be talking about new games again. We're not even going to be able to cover all of them in these two videos, but we'll hopefully be able to cover some of the biggest releases. And one of those is Mage Wars from Arcane Wonders. Mage Wars did not have as many games there as they wanted to have, but there was enough, and a lot of people were very interested in this 2 to 4 player deck building, mage spell slinging game. It's still currently my favorite game of the year, and I was glad to see that there were other people who seemed to enjoy it just as much as I did. On the smaller side, here's a game called Ragami, which is like a mixture of 3 angels' names, Raphael, Gabriel, and Michael. And it's basically a Euro game, but the designer wanted to try a different theme, not with the same old, fantasy themes or, trading in the Mediterranean stuff. But so he has these angels who are going around and they're being guardian angels, but it isn't a straight thematic game. It is a Euro game. And so this was a very interesting one that we found in a smaller booth. Right next to it, though, in a huge booth, was AEG, showing off lots of games, but their biggest game of the fair by far was Smash Up. I mean, Smash Up was a big success. It's a very light game in which you can take ninja pirates and fight against robot zombies, and it just all fits together. And everywhere I went, I saw people playing Smash Up and having fun. And, of course, AEG had their L5R, and they also had some really cool, gigantic bags that people could use. Stronghold Games was also there in a big way, showing off a lot of different games that they had. This was not actually at the fair, Milestones, just missed it, but it's coming out soon. I've done a full review on this game, but it's a very solid middleweight Euro in which players are building, they have their own personal rondels, and they will be placing different roads and buildings onto this grid, trying to score points after using their rondels. But this wasn't the only game that Stronghold had in their grouping. They had out Core Worlds, of course, and they were able to show off the expansion for that. But they also had a few smaller games. One of these is called the Crazy Creatures of Dr. Gloom, and the other was Little Devils. And they also had some expansions for Revolver. So all that together made for a pretty strong selection in a fairly small booth. Of course, the big news story with Stronghold, well, we'll have to come to that in another video. But let's move on to a publisher that I did not know about before I got here, and that always seems to happen at fairs. And this one is Rather Dashing. And they were showing off 3 new games. They had X Marks the Spot, which is sort of a game in which you're trying to make X's of tiles on the board. They had 4 Taverns, which to me, I didn't get a chance to play any of these games, but to me, 4 Taverns almost look like a simpler version of Legends of Camelot. But the games did seem to be highly produced. They had a big booth. Oh, by the way, here's the 3rd game, Red Hot, which looks like a really simple card game for families. But this is one of the things that I really like about GenCon, is because you can go there and, yeah, you're going to look for Fantasy Flight and you're going to look for AEG and some of the big companies, but you also go and find smaller game companies like this one who will be able to show off their different games. Speaking of small companies that made it big, Plaid Hat Games was there, and they were showing off their newest expansions for their very, very popular game, Summoner Wars, and this year they had Dungeon Run. But the big game that people were coming to see, which wasn't actually released here, but was there with some production copies, is Mice and Mystics, which is a game about warrior mice. And folks, I've opened this box and gone through the components, and it is amazing just what is inside this box. All kinds of plastic and dice and components. And it's a very story-driven game as you take your warrior mice and you're going to walk them through and fight just across gorgeous boards. And this wasn't the only thing they had. Here's Dungeon Run, which they had released last year, but now was in full availability. And so people were really crowded around the Plaid Hat booths every time that I was there, having fun playing games. other small games that I saw there. I did see a booth for Cambridge Games, but they did have the new version, the black box version of Glory to Rome. And I have to say that I really like the old cheesy cartoon artwork better. This is nice, I guess, but it just looks so sterile. It looks a little bland. But hey, people, it is a good game. There's no denying that. I just thought the old one had a bit of character. But there was other games there, like I said, from small publishers. Here was Legacy, a time-traveling game where you go back in time and invent different inventions or discover new technologies. And if you go back in an earlier time than someone else, then your technology is discovered first. And so this one seemed to have a pretty good area where they were showing it off and people were playing it, which is, again, is another thing I'm glad of. You take the game from Kickstarter like they did, and you kickstart the game that comes out. It's a little popular. Then you take it to a large convention like GenCon, where you're able to show it off to all sorts of people, and everybody has a blast playing it. I didn't get to see all the games that Cryptozoic was showing off. They were showing off quite a few games. Their booth was jam-packed the whole time. But one of the games that they were able to, that was very popular, they had a DC deck building game, a DC comic deck building game. Wasn't able to get any video of that one, but we do have video of their 3012, 100 years or 1,000 years in the future, I guess, and showed this one off. And a lot of people who played it said that they did enjoy it. I did not get a chance to, so you'll have to wait for my opinion on that. Another game that got a lot of popularity was this Level 7, a kind of horror/cooperative game. And then there was Z-Man Games. Now, Z-Man Games was there. They had a big booth, lots of demos that you could play with lots of their older games and 3 brand new games that they were showing off. One of those brand new games was the cooperative game, Atlantis Rising. And the other one was the cooperative game in which one person is left behind in Alcatraz. But the game that was really popular and sold out because there was only 100 copies was Battle Beyond Space, which some people have described to me as a 1X game. You know, there's Explore, Exterminate, all these things, but this one is just Exterminate, a very light space combat game. Now, doesn't that look cool? I cannot wait to be able to get and play this game. It just looks fantastic. A fun little space game that plays in 45 minutes. I didn't show you in the last video the new Tsuro, the C version of it, and it really looks nice. I do not know how differently it plays. Obviously, it does play differently. You can see the different arrows there, but it has a very gorgeous board, and any board that has giant sea monsters, such as the one on this board, has to be good at least a little bit. So hopefully we'll get more information on this game coming soon. Another game that I really was kind of surprised by was this Superhero Squad game. Now, I don't really a huge fan of this tinification of the Marvel superheroes. And there's a really cool game coming from this company, Upper Deck, a Marvel deck building game. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. But this one here is very similar to Pokemon. Not necessarily in how it plays, but in the level of it. It's a very light game, a game that I would enjoy playing my daughter. It does have a Marvel Universe flavor to it. It's a very pretty looking game, but it is a collectible card game, so you do have to get all the different cards that you might want to need, although building a deck, I would say, is fairly simple. A big splash at the fair, of course, was Star Trek Catan, which you can buy from Mayfair itself or at Target stores, which is pretty neat. Now, some people say this is Jump the Shark, but I don't care. I think it's really cool. They were showing it off here. Everyone seemed to be playing it in the one corner that Mayfair dominates in this fair. Everybody's playing it, and the component quality of this game is just absolutely amazing. They brought in the actor who played Uhura in the original series. She was signing boxes of this game, and there is a few minor rule changes from what I understand, but for the most part, it's just a straight-up simple version of the Settlers of Catan, but it's in space and it's Star Trek. So why would you not like that? So that was selling like hotcakes, like many of the games here. So let's take a look at one more game from Cubicle 7. This is the Doctor Who card game designed by Martin Wallace. That has a lot of people interested in it because, one, it's Martin Wallace, and two, it's Doctor Who. Come on. So this game had a line of people waiting to pick this one up. And here you see some people playing it, but I have not yet been able to determine if the game is good or not. Eric Summerer, my co-host, has read through the rules, and he said that he has enjoyed it. So hopefully it will be a good game, and you'll hear more about it on the Dice Tower. So that's it for new games this time. Next time, we're going to take a look at upcoming games, some of the prototypes that we played or that we saw there. We'll see you soon.
For more news from the board game industry, visit GameSaluteNews.com. And for more from the Dice Tower, visit Dicetower.com. I'm Eric Summerer. Thanks for watching the Dice Tower.